At what point is the private sector willing to pay to do what needs to be done in the region?
We have a diet of limitations, but not a sufficient discourse on our possibilities.
This is a critical step in our regional integration process.
Mistrust within countries is defeating us. It's not an economic matter, that is a matter for mindset.
West Indian people, we are a gem.
Let's advance our partnership together through the region.
Let us organize and do that together.
We need to ensure that there's transparency in what we do.
I do it because I love it. I'm passionate about watching things grow.
If there's a will, you will find a way to make it happen.
This is a critical area for us as well, as we all know, and Bahamas has been taking the lead in trying to, along with, of course, Antigua and Barbuda, assessing where the financial services sector is in the region and where we go from here. He has an LLM Masters of Law in International Taxation and a Juris Doctor Master of Business Administration from the University of Miami. Dr. Arnold McIntyre, I didn't realize his first name was Meredith, is the program coordinator at CARTAC. He's a Grenadian national and received BSc honors from UWI and, of course, his MA in economics at Yale University. Then went on to University of Toronto and was awarded a PhD in economics. He, of course, has had an extensive career, including at Caribbean Export in his younger days, and was IMF resident representative in Ghana, as well as on teams for Kenya, and is now the head of the CARTAC here. He, of course, has published articles and journals on many of these issues, and he is quoted in A Time for Action. Mr. Ogando Laura is the current Director General of the CARIFORUM Directorate in the CARICOM Secretariat, International of the Dominican Republic. He has over 20 years' experience in these organizations and also in, of course, the Free Trade Area of the Americas, the IDB, OAS, USAID, and the former Caribbean Regional Negotiating Machinery. Mr. Ogando's qualifications include, of course, substantial academic teaching experience in postgraduate programs, and as an independent consultant has done a great amount of work on issues affecting trade cooperation and relations. So we have a team here that is assembled that I think speaks for itself in terms of its eminence and its qualification. So I just want to start now by asking Sir Sridhar if he would be willing to take the floor. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Moderator, fellow West Indians, and others, all eminent. I want to start with some West Indian words, solemn words. We are determined to work towards the establishment of, in the shortest possible time, of a single market and economy for the Caribbean community. It'll soon be 24 years since that assertion at Grand Anse in 1989. West Indian technicians faithfully took their leaders to the brink of the implementation of that statement with the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. But there was no action. There was no political action. There was no political will to act in all those years, over the entire 2 decades. Nothing decisive has happened to fulfill that dream of Grand Anse. But the Grand Anse Summit of 1989 had done something more concrete than the Charter of Dreams it passed. A resolution on preparing the people of the West Indies for the 21st century. by Caribbean leaders. By this, the Caribbean leaders established an independent West Indian Commission, as they said, for enhancing the goals of the Treaty of Chaguaramas. And they appointed me its chairman. Prime Minister Robinson of Trinidad and Tobago had consulted me before the summit meeting, and this possibility of being chairman had been agreed. Agreed if that were the wish, the collective wish of all the heads of government. My own term as Secretary General of the Commonwealth was coming to an end. It was a propitious time. We were given 2 years in which to work. And those 2 years were, quite frankly, among the most intensive of my regional life. The Commission itself was a commingling of some of the finest West Indian minds. Every CARICOM country was represented, but only in the sense of belonging. Every member was independent and acted independently. All the heads of government were consulted. And only in one case did the Prime Minister vary my proposal. The candidate, he said, was not native born. I should have sensed the danger. I made up for that by inviting the Governor General of Barbados to be our patron, the splendid Dame Nita Barrow. At Grand Dance, I knew that Alistair McIntyre would be with me as vice chairman, as would Roderick Rainford and Vaughan Lewis as ex officio members. But I could not know how handsomely we would be supported by a team of commissioners, a team of commissioners of superlative order. And I pay a tribute to them each time I mention them. I mentioned them not merely for staying a rather rugged course with steady and good humor, but in the end, as a result of all this, chairing the commission was not a task, really. It was a great privilege to have shared such an exciting experience with such a worthy team of West Indians. But there was more to that privilege. For all of us, our consultations with the people of the region rank high among the most stimulating and rewarding experiences of our lives. We tried in our report to convey the flavor of these groundings with fellow West Indians. I hope we succeeded, because the richness of those encounters still needs to be shared with all West Indians. The fact that our compatriots came forward in such numbers, no less than their written contributions to us, the frankness, often the passion, sometimes the anger that characterized their presentations, the good humor that was always present, the element of piquant directed to the Commission, and always the underlying message that they cared about their West Indianness, about their Caribbeanness, as some of them preferred, cared enough to come forward to tell it to the Commission. All this was not just an unforgettable personal experience, but a quite soulful process of enduring value in our evolving regionalism. Each member of the commission, I suspect, will have high points of recollection of these consultations with the people and with the governments of CARICOM. For me, a few recollections capture up their immemorial quality. And that quality, I think, is important to the whole nature of the report and indeed to its aftermath as we consider our condition today. A poignant moment in Georgetown's City Hall with a young woman of Guyana's Amerindian community speaking plaintively but scoldingly of the needs and the hopes of the first peoples of the Caribbean. Our evening in Barrowley, a fishing village in St. Vincent, in a dim-lit school hall, and the people, pleased that we had come to talk with them, telling us of their concerns about unemployment, about teenage pregnancies, about the falling off of fishing catches, and the production of their famed black oil of aphrodisiac quality. That was their speciality. Our public meeting in the Titchfield High School on a bluff overlooking one of the lovely bays of Jamaica's east coast, a school established some 200 years ago, where all kinds of linkages confirmed for us our oneness. One commissioner had been trained nearby at a Methodist seminary and had married a teacher of the school. The principal had been at UWI with at least 3 other commissioners. There were 8 Guyanese teachers on the staff. One of the ladies in the audience had married an Anglican and yearned aloud for a return of the federal ships so that she might travel through the region. Our meeting with 6 formers in Port of Spain, when young people spoke with us about their anxieties, including anxieties about the emergence of ethnicity as a factor in national life, and our dialogue with them on the value of a transcendent regionalism that subordinates ethnic origin to the overarching West Indian identity. This Saturday morning, I spent with Rex Nettleford and Alan Curtin, talking with Rastafarians and others in Temple Yard in Barbados, as we reached out to them to hear at first hand of their grievances and to witness their industry and determination to overcome. The throbbing West Indianness of our meeting in Birmingham, in the English Midlands, when the diaspora spoke with us of their sense of being forgotten and neglected, and they're worried that their homeland, there were no doubt that there were all West Indians there from a West Indian homeland, was falling behind in responding to contemporary needs. A late night in Cuba, which the Commission shared with Fidel Castro, shared his view of the present economic problems that Cuba faced, and his resolve that the Cuban people would overcome them, and the chance it gave us to explore with him our own ideas of a wider Caribbean, ultimately embracing all the countries of the Caribbean basin, ideas which he welcomed. The irony of a visit to tiny Carriacou, when an old-timer asked us, not mockingly, but in a serious vein, what was in it for Carriacou, joining up with all those poor people in Jamaica and Guyana, and even Trinidad. recalling to our minds, of course, an earlier time at Montego Bay in 1947, when those same sentiments were aired, but with the countries reversed. Carriacou was then among the pauperized, as it seemed from Jamaica 45 years ago. There were messages for us in all those encounters, which is why I recall them to you here, as in all the consultations everywhere. Messages of today for you and tomorrow for me, of ignoring only at our grave cost that integration is about people and that everyday concerns which go beyond such matters as trade regimes and rules of origin, of being mindful of how much we have to grow beyond our English-speaking communities into the wider multilingual Caribbean, and many, many more messages. Our report came to be about those messages and about needed responses to them. Time for Action was something of a regional manifesto for the 90s and beyond, as we had been asked to provide by the Grand Dance Declaration. As the Commission faced the many problems that were at hand and the others that lay ahead in the region, we reminded ourselves of the strengths and the achievements of the West Indies. What we must not do, felt the Commission, is to run out of steam. The Moynihan Commission's report 50 years before, a British Royal Commission, had led to many changes. Now the region faced a time of threat to those achievements, social concerns that we could be falling behind, new economic problems like shortages of foreign exchange, which had not been a part of past experience. And with all our gains for democracy over the years, there were deep anxieties about the quality of governance now. Indeed, disaffection with the entire political process. And on top of all that was the emerging menace of the drug problem. The West Indies, the Commission believed, needed to recapture some of the strengths of earlier years and knew that they must come from new generations. As we came to the end of our work, we were conscious that there was unlikely to be another commission of this kind for many a year, perhaps for many a decade. That awareness enlarged our responsibilities, but we were encouraged as well that a process of change had already begun when CARICOM leaders accepted our interim proposals to ease up on the hassle of travel in the region, to create a single line at airports for residents and CARICOM nationals, when they accepted that graduates of the University of the West Indies and other skilled West Indians, as well as West Indian media personnel, can live and work anywhere in the region, when they agreed to establish the Caribbean Investment Fund, you remember it, and to take steps towards a common currency, in addition to quickening progress toward their goal of a single market and economy, something we felt had begun to happen in the region. So we were convinced of our potential to do much better in the future. There was enough that was positive in our domestic, regional, and external circumstances to make us feel hopeful. But there was much to be done, and time was not on our side. The global system was becoming more competitive, and many nations were making great efforts to be more efficient in economic organization and in resource in product and service markets. We must not be left behind, and many of our recommendations offered the means to go forward. But the Commission was unequivocal. We must go forward in unity. Regionalism, integration are at the heart of getting our act together, and we move to what we hope would be the early adoption and implementation of our central recommendation. That process would require momentum and help to give faith to the peoples of the region that the end years of the 20th century and the advent of a new millennium could be a period of hope, not hopelessness. The Commission called the report Time for Action to dramatize how necessary it was to speed up the process of integration, of acting together in a systematic way. Hence, our central recommendation for the early establishment of a permanent CARICOM Commission. Small but high-level authority in CARICOM working at the interface between political decision and practical action. A commission with confidence to initiate proposals, update consensus, mobilize action, and secure implementation of CARICOM decisions, to secure them in an expeditious and informed manner. A small group of some of our best people, drawn preferably from public and political life, engaged upon that task of making regional things happen and making things happen regionally, engaged in that pursuit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, unencumbered by the business of office at the national level and freed of the technocratic and administrative roles that are the valid and valued domain of the Secretariat. We said in Time for Action that we regard this as the single most important decision West Indian leaders can take. Indeed, we said that if they took only one decision, we believed it should be this. We said so because we were convinced that without the Commission or some such executive authority, we would not make progress regionally. And in our view, that meant not stagnation, but unraveling, not ticking over, but falling apart. Grand Dance was 1989. Time for Action was 1992. Fast forward to 2012, 20 years later. Prime Minister Skerritt of Dominica recalls in 2012 Derek Walcott's acceptance speech as he received the Nobel Prize for Literature and likened the Caribbean to a beautiful vase that has been shattered by its history into many pieces. And he continued, the PM, to be quite frank, for the most part, the community exists in the words of the treaty only. Prime Minister Gonzalez of St. Vincent and the Grenadines affirms in 2012 that CARICOM's mode of marking time at an historical moment of overwhelmingly awesome challenges for our region, which compellingly demands a more prolonged and profound integration, is mistaken. Pausing is but a euphemism for standing still. which in a dynamic world is sliding backward. Former Prime Minister Owen Arthur claimed, in a word, the region faces the specter of becoming a failed society. It is a challenge that makes it imperative that we strengthen every facet of our integration movement and move to be a perfect union. Prime Minister Kenny Anthony warns, the Caribbean is and has been for too long stalled at the crossroads of indecision, stalled for so long that we are in danger of becoming anachronistic. Quo vadis, where are we going? How do we get there? Clearly, we cannot stand still. Time, I say, is verily upon us. And as 2012 closed, P.J. Patterson's respected voice from the past, from my past, counsels his successors. Let me make it clear. Urgent steps are required to rescue CARICOM, or else life, of course, may come too late to prevent permanent coma. Why is all this important to export market development? Because export market development of which we speak is in the regional context. It is a maximizing of regionalism, maximizing integration to further export market development. We addressed it in Time for Action. The very first of the economic issues on pages 143 to 160, headlined Export-Led Growth. And our premise was movement towards a single market within which there would be currency convertibility and capital and labor mobility. 20 years later, there are none of these preconditions. Last week in Georgetown, CARICOM officials reiterated their failure to agree a regime of contingent rights, the sine qua non of even that very limited category of skills on which heads had long ago agreed there should be labor mobility. The point is, we are trying to secure export-led growth in the absence of the integration environment on which it was premised. Certainly by Time for Action. West Indians, I believe, understand that we are spinning top in mud. And they do not wonder why we are not getting anywhere. Let me end with a quotation from a very tired West Indian. It was a quote from a local food vendor right here in Barbados. From Jamaica to Guyana is one West Indian nation. What is the reason for a CARICOM passport if we can't have a Caribbean nation? I can't tell you what a Bajan is, because what you find in a Bajan, you find in a Trinidad, in a Vincentian, in a Jamaican, because people are just people. And West Indian people we are a gem. I don't see Grenadians, Guyanese, St. Lucians. I see people. The only thing that separates us is us. So, whence the impediments to export-led development? Economic or political? Technical or environmental? Regional or national? Can we solve the problems that impede export-led growth without resolving the problems that afflict regional integration? Thank you.
Very good.